Hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Sam Fury Show. This episode is a summary of the book The Art of Thinking Clearly by Rolf Dobelli. The Art of Thinking Clearly by Rolf Dobelli explores common cognitive biases and errors in human decision-making. It offers practical insights and strategies to help readers recognize and overcome these biases, ultimately improving their ability to make clearer and more rational decisions in various aspects of life. Chapter 50. Cognitive Dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is the mental discomfort experienced when holding contradictory beliefs or when behavior conflicts with beliefs. For example, a person who values health but smokes may experience cognitive dissonance, as their action, smoking, conflicts with their belief, valuing health. To guard against cognitive dissonance, strive for consistency in beliefs and actions. When confronted with dissonance, objectively evaluate your beliefs and behaviors and be willing to adjust either to align them more closely. This can involve changing habits or re-examining and modifying beliefs. Chapter 51. Hyperbolic Discounting. Hyperbolic discounting is the tendency to prefer smaller, immediate rewards over larger future benefits, often leading to irrational short-term choices. For example, choosing to watch TV instead of studying for an important exam illustrates hyperbolic discounting, as the immediate pleasure overrides the more significant future benefit of studying. To guard against hyperbolic discounting, focus on long-term goals and consequences of actions. Practice delaying gratification and consider the future implications of present choices. Making plans and setting goals can help align immediate actions with long-term aspirations. Chapter 52. Because justification. Because justification is the tendency to accept explanations and requests more readily when they include the word because, even if the reason given is weak or irrelevant. For example, a person might be more willing to let someone cut in line if they say, "Can I go first because I'm in a hurry?" regardless of the actual urgency of their need. To guard against this, critically evaluate reasons and requests, focusing on their actual validity rather than being swayed by the mere presence of a justification. Question the logic and necessity behind explanations, especially those that hinge on weak or irrelevant because rationales. Chapter 53. Decision fatigue. Decision fatigue is the deteriorating quality of decisions made after a long session of decision-making. For example, after a day of making numerous business decisions, an executive might choose the easiest, not the best, option in a late afternoon meeting due to depleted mental energy. To guard against decision fatigue, make important decisions when fresh, limit the number of decisions made consecutively, and simplify choices where possible. Regular breaks, good nutrition, and adequate rest also help maintain decision-making stamina. Chapter 54. Contagion bias. Contagion bias is the irrational belief that objects or people can transfer their qualities to others through association or contact. For example, a person might refuse to wear a sweater previously owned by someone they dislike, believing the negative traits of the former owner will transfer to them. To guard against contagion bias, recognize and challenge irrational beliefs about the transfer of qualities. Base judgments on objective qualities and facts, rather than superstitions or unfounded associations. Chapter 55. The problem with averages. The problem with averages is the misleading nature of averages in representing individual cases, often hiding variations and extremes. For example, if 10 people have an average wealth of $1 million, this doesn't mean each person is a millionaire. One could be a billionaire, with the rest having much less. To guard against this, look beyond averages to understand data distributions, including extremes and variances. Consider individual cases and context, and avoid generalizing from averages to specific instances. Chapter 56. Motivation crowding. Motivation. Crowding occurs when external incentives or pressures diminish intrinsic motivation. For example, a A child who loves drawing might lose interest if they start getting paid for their artwork, shifting their motivation from enjoyment to earning money. To guard against motivation crowding, balance intrinsic and extrinsic motivators. Encourage activities for their inherent value and satisfaction, not just for external rewards or recognition. Chapter 57. Twaddle Tendency. Twaddle tendency is the inclination to add meaningless or trivial information or opinions, often to appear more knowledgeable or authoritative. For example, in meetings, some people might speak at length without adding value, just to seem active or important. To guard against twaddle tendency, focus on clarity and brevity in communication. Value substance over volume and encourage environments where contributions are meaningful and concise. Practice self-awareness to recognize and reduce unnecessary or unproductive input. Chapter 58. Will Rogers Phenomenon. The Will Rogers phenomenon refers to statistical illusions caused by shifting elements between sets, which paradoxically raises the average of both sets. For example, if a low-scoring student moves from a high-achieving class to a lower-achieving one, the average of both classes increases, despite no change in overall performance. To guard against it, be cautious in interpreting statistical changes, especially when elements are reclassified. Look for underlying causes of shifts in averages and consider the broader context, not just the immediate statistical outcome. Chapter 59. Information Bias. Information bias is the tendency to seek more information than necessary to make a decision, often leading to analysis paralysis. For example, a person may delay buying a car by endlessly researching models and features, despite having enough information to make an informed choice. To guard against information bias, identify the essential information needed for a decision and avoid excessive data gathering. Set clear criteria and limits for research, and practice making decisions with available, sufficient information. Chapter 60. Effort Justification. Effort justification is valuing an outcome more highly if significant effort was invested, regardless of the actual worth. For example, someone might overvalue a piece of furniture they struggled to assemble themselves, believing the effort makes it more valuable. To guard against effort justification, assess outcomes based on objective criteria, separate from the effort involved. Acknowledge the effort, but evaluate the result on its own merits, preventing overestimation due to personal investment. Chapter 61. The Law of Small Numbers. The law of small numbers is the error of drawing broad conclusions from small samples. For example, if a new restaurant gets a few excellent reviews initially, one might wrongly conclude it's the best in town, even though the sample size is too small to be representative. To guard against this, seek larger, more representative samples before forming conclusions. Understand the limitations of small datasets and resist the urge to generalize from them. Chapter 62. Expectations. Expectations refer to preconceived notions or beliefs about future events or outcomes, which can significantly influence perception and satisfaction. For example, expecting a movie to be outstanding based on reviews may lead to disappointment if it's just average, despite it being enjoyable with no prior expectations. To guard against the influence of expectations, try to approach situations with an open mind, without preconceived notions. Evaluate experiences based on their actual merits, not against pre-built standards or assumptions. Chapter 63. Simple Logic. Simple logic refers to the inclination to prefer straightforward explanations or solutions, often overlooking more complex but accurate reasoning. For example, a person might attribute their headache to stress alone, ignoring other potential factors like dehydration or lack of sleep, because stress is a simpler explanation. To guard against this, it's important to consider multiple factors and avoid jumping to conclusions. Being open to complexity and seeking comprehensive explanations can lead to a more accurate understanding of situations and problems. Chapter 64. Fourier Effect. The Forer effect is the tendency to perceive vague, general statements as highly accurate for oneself, despite them being applicable to a wide range of people. For example, horoscopes often contain broad descriptions that individuals believe accurately describe their unique personality or life situation. To guard against the Forer effect, critically evaluate the specificity and evidence behind claims. Recognize the allure of generic statements and be skeptical of their personal applicability, especially when they lack concrete, individualized information. Chapter 65, Volunteer's Folly. Volunteer's folly refers to the inefficiency of volunteering for tasks where one's skills are not best utilized, especially when their professional work could generate more value or resources for the same cause. For example, if a high-earning professional spends time on unskilled volunteer work, they could have instead worked extra hours professionally and donated the earnings, generating more benefit for the cause. To guard against volunteer's folly, one should evaluate their unique skills and how best to use them for a cause. If their professional work can generate more value than their direct volunteering, it may be more effective to donate resources earned from their profession. Chapter 66. Affect Heuristic. The affect heuristic is the tendency to make decisions based on emotions and feelings rather than objective analysis. For example, a person might choose a job because it feels right, despite it offering lower pay and fewer career opportunities than another option. To guard against the affect heuristic, strive for balanced decision-making by considering both emotional responses and factual data. Acknowledge your feelings, but also critically evaluate the practical aspects and potential outcomes of decisions. Chapter 67. Introspection Illusion. The introspection. Illusion is overestimating one's ability to understand and predict their own behavior and motives. For example, a person might believe they will remain calm in a high-stress situation, but when actually faced with it, they react with panic or anger. To guard against this illusion, acknowledge the complexity and unpredictability of human behavior, including your own. Be open to feedback and external perspectives and recognize that self-awareness has limitations. Chapter 68. Inability to close doors. The inability to close doors is the reluctance to abandon options or projects, even when they're no longer beneficial. For example, continuing an unprofitable business venture because of the time and money already invested, instead of cutting losses and moving on to more promising opportunities. To guard against this, regularly reevaluate commitments and be willing to let go of those that no longer serve a beneficial purpose. Focus on future potential rather than past investments. Chapter 69. Neomania. Neomania is the obsession with novelty, often favoring new things over proven, existing ones. For example, constantly upgrading to the latest smartphone model, regardless of whether the new features offer any substantial improvement over the previous version. To guard against neomania, evaluate new things based on actual needs and benefits, not just their novelty. Consider the value and utility of existing options before pursuing the latest trends or innovations. Chapter 70. Sleeper Effect. The sleeper effect refers to the phenomenon where a message initially disregarded due to an untrustworthy source gains credibility over time, as the source's unreliability is forgotten while the message is remembered. For example, a person might initially dismiss a health tip from a discredited website. However, weeks later, they might recall the tip without remembering the dubious source and begin to believe it. To guard against this effect, it's important to always consider the source of information and maintain a critical mindset. Keeping track of where and from whom you learn information can help in evaluating its reliability over time. Chapter 71. Alternative Blindness. Alternative blindness is the tendency to evaluate decisions without considering all alternatives, leading to potentially suboptimal choices. For example, a person might choose to buy a car after comparing only two models, overlooking other potentially better options available in the market. To guard against this, it's important to systematically explore a range of options before making a decision, ensuring that you're not overlooking potentially better alternatives. This approach can lead to more informed and balanced decisions. Chapter 72. Social Comparison Bias. Social comparison bias is the inclination to compare oneself to others in ways that can lead to feelings of inferiority or superiority. For example, a person might feel inadequate after seeing a friend's luxurious vacation photos on social media, despite their own accomplishments and happiness. To guard against this bias, focus on personal goals and achievements rather than comparing with others. Cultivating gratitude for one's own life and accomplishments can help maintain a balanced perspective and reduce the impact of social comparisons. Chapter 73. Primacy and Recency Effects. Primacy and recency effects describe the tendency to remember the first and last items in a series better than the middle ones. For example, during a presentation, audience members are more likely to recall the points made at the beginning and end, while the middle content is less remembered. To guard against this effect, it's helpful to actively focus on and revisit the middle sections of information. Taking notes and reviewing them can aid in retaining and recalling the entire span of information more effectively. Chapter 74. Not Invented Here Syndrome. Not invented here syndrome is a bias where individuals or organizations undervalue ideas, solutions, or products that originate externally. For example, a company may reject a superior software solution offered by an external vendor, preferring an inferior in-house developed program simply because it was created internally. To guard against this syndrome, it's important to actively encourage and value external ideas and solutions. Cultivating an open-minded culture that appreciates diversity in thought and origin can lead to more innovative and effective outcomes. Chapter 75. The Black Swan. The black swan refers to highly improbable and unpredictable events that have massive impact. For example, the sudden emergence of a global pandemic like COVID-19 was a black swan event, unforeseen by most and having profound worldwide effects. To guard against such events, it's crucial to maintain flexibility and resilience in planning and thinking. Diversifying investments, preparing for various outcomes, and not relying on predictions based solely on past events can help mitigate the impact of these rare occurrences. Chapter 76. Domain Dependence. Domain dependence is the tendency to apply knowledge or skills in some areas, but fail to do so in others, despite relevance. For example, a skilled business negotiator might struggle to negotiate effectively in a personal situation, like buying a car, failing to transfer their professional skills. To guard against this, actively practice applying your knowledge and skills across different areas of life. Reflecting on different contexts where your abilities are relevant can help bridge the gap between domains. Chapter 77. False Consensus Effect. The false consensus effect is the tendency to overestimate how much others share our beliefs, behaviors, and attitudes. For example, a person who frequently recycles might assume that most people are equally environmentally conscious, even if this is not the case. To guard against this, it's important to actively seek out diverse perspectives and recognize that our views might not be as widely held as we believe. This can lead to a more accurate understanding of others' viewpoints and behaviors. Chapter 78. Falsification of History. Falsification of history involves altering or misrepresenting historical events to fit current beliefs or narratives. For example, a government might rewrite textbooks to portray historical events in a way that favors its current ideology, distorting the true events for future generations. To guard against this, it's essential to consult multiple, diverse sources when studying history and remain critical of biases and perspectives. Encouraging open academic discourse and protecting historical records can help preserve the integrity of historical understanding. Chapter 79. In-group, out-group bias. In-group, out-group bias is favoring people who belong to the same group as oneself over those from different groups. For example, a sports fan might irrationally support a player from their favorite team while criticizing a similar player from a rival team. To guard against this bias, it's important to consciously recognize and challenge our predispositions towards our own group. Striving for objective evaluations and empathy towards all groups can help mitigate this bias. Chapter 80. Ambiguity aversion. Ambiguity aversion is the tendency to avoid options with unknown probabilities, preferring choices with known risks. For example, an investor might choose a traditional stock with a clear performance history over a new, potentially more profitable cryptocurrency due to the uncertainty surrounding it. To guard against this, consider the potential benefits of uncertain options and try to objectively assess risks. Educating oneself about the unknown factors can also help in making more informed decisions in the face of ambiguity. Chapter 81. Default effect. The default effect is the propensity to stick with the preset or default option instead of making an active choice. For example, many people stick with their employer's default retirement fund allocation instead of customizing their investment choices. To guard against this, actively review and consider your options in any decision-making process rather than passively accepting the default. This ensures more deliberate and personalized choices. Chapter 82. Fear of regret. Fear of regret is the anxiety of making a decision that might lead to remorse or disappointment in the future. For example, someone might avoid investing in the stock market due to the fear of losing money and later regretting the decision. To guard against this, focus on making well-informed decisions based on rational analysis rather than emotions. Accepting that some degree of uncertainty and risk is inherent in most decisions can also help in managing this fear. Chapter 83. Salience effect. The salience effect is the tendency to focus on the most noticeable or emotionally striking features of an event, often at the expense of other important factors. For example, dramatic news stories may lead people to overestimate the frequency of rare events, like airplane crashes, while underestimating more common risks. To guard against this, strive for a balanced perspective by actively seeking out less dramatic but equally important information. This helps in making more accurate and less emotionally driven judgments. Chapter 84. House money effect. The house money effect describes the tendency to take greater risks with money that's perceived as easily gained or unexpected, like a windfall. For example, someone who wins money at a casino might gamble more recklessly with their winnings than they would with their regular income. To guard against this, treat all money with the same level of consideration, regardless of its source. Maintaining consistent financial decision-making principles can help in managing risk more effectively. Chapter 85. Procrastination. Procrastination is the habit of delaying tasks or decisions, often irrationally, despite potential negative consequences. For example, a student might postpone studying for an important exam until the night before, even though they know it's detrimental to their performance. To guard against procrastination, set clear goals and deadlines, break tasks into smaller steps, and create a structured schedule. Eliminating distractions and rewarding progress can also help in overcoming the tendency to delay tasks. Chapter 86. Envy. Envy is the discomfort or distress caused by desiring what others have, whether it's possessions, status, or abilities. For example, a person may feel envious seeing a colleague receive a promotion they themselves desired, even if they are otherwise content with their own career. To guard against envy, focus on personal goals and achievements, and practice gratitude for what you have. Understanding that everyone's path is unique can help in appreciating your own journey without unfavorable comparisons. Chapter 87: Personification. Personification highlights the human tendency to favor engaging narrative forms of information over abstract statistical data due to their emotional and relatable nature. For example, people might be more moved by a single compelling personal story about a natural disaster than by statistical data showing its widespread impact. To guard against this bias, it's important to seek out and consider statistical data alongside narrative accounts. Balancing emotional narratives with factual data helps in forming a more comprehensive and accurate understanding of situations. Chapter 88: Illusion of Attention. The illusion of attention is the mistaken belief that our attention captures everything of importance in our field of view. For example, while focused on a smartphone screen, a person may not notice a friend waving at them from a distance, overestimating their awareness of their surroundings. To guard against this, it's important to recognize the limitations of our attention and actively broaden our focus. Regularly taking breaks from intense concentration to observe the wider environment can help improve overall awareness. Chapter 89: Strategic Misrepresentation. Strategic misrepresentation involves deliberately distorting or misstating information to achieve specific objectives or advantages. For example, a salesperson might exaggerate the benefits of a product while downplaying its shortcomings to make a sale, presenting a skewed version of the truth. To guard against this, verify information from multiple sources and maintain a healthy skepticism, especially in situations where incentives for misrepresentation are high. Critical thinking and due diligence can help in discerning the accuracy of presented information. Chapter 90: Overthinking. Overthinking is the excessive analysis or rumination over decisions or situations, often leading to stress and indecision. For example, a person might spend hours deliberating over the pros and cons of two very similar options for a minor purchase, causing unnecessary anxiety. To guard against overthinking, set time limits for decision-making, focus on key factors, and accept that some uncertainty is inevitable. Practicing decisiveness in smaller matters can also build confidence in making choices more efficiently. Chapter 91: Planning Fallacy. The planning fallacy is underestimating the time, costs, and risks of future actions while overestimating the benefits. For example, a person might plan a home renovation expecting it to take 1 month, only to find it actually takes 3 months and costs much more than anticipated. To guard against this, consider past similar tasks to realistically estimate time and costs. Additionally, adding a buffer for unexpected delays and expenses can lead to more accurate planning. Chapter 92: Déformation professionnelle. Déformation professionnelle is a cognitive bias where one's professional perspective overly influences how one views and interprets the world. For example, a hammer manufacturer might see every problem as solvable with a hammer, neglecting other solutions or tools. To guard against this, actively seek perspectives from various fields and remain open to different methods and ideas. This broadens one's approach to problem-solving and decision-making. Chapter 93: Zeigarnik Effect. The Zeigarnik effect discusses our tendency to remember uncompleted or interrupted tasks better than completed ones. This phenomenon is named after psychologist Bloomer Zeigarnik, who observed that waiters remembered orders only as long as the order was in the process of being served. For example, if you start doing a puzzle but leave it halfway, you are likely to remember the unfinished puzzle more vividly than one you completed a week ago. The incomplete puzzle stays in your mind, urging you to return and finish it. To guard against the Zeigarnik effect, it's important to manage tasks by setting clear goals and deadlines. Completing tasks fully before moving on to the next one can help reduce the mental clutter of unfinished work. Making detailed to-do lists and systematically ticking off completed items can also provide a sense of closure, allowing the mind to release them from active memory. Chapter 94. Illusion of skill. Illusion of skill describes the misconception that one's abilities or expertise significantly influence outcomes, even in areas largely governed by chance. This leads to overconfidence in personal skill and underestimation of randomness. For example, a stock trader might believe they possess a unique skill for picking winning stocks, attributing their occasional successes to skill rather than market randomness. To guard against this illusion, one should acknowledge the role of chance in success, especially in fields like financial markets. Relying on statistical evidence and long-term performance data, rather than individual hunches or short-term successes, can provide a more realistic assessment of skill versus luck. Chapter 95. Feature Positive Effect. The feature positive effect refers to the tendency to focus more on the presence of a feature or information rather than its absence, often leading to skewed judgments or decisions. For example, a person might give more weight to the benefits of a medication, like pain relief, while overlooking its non-occurrence, like no side effects, leading to a biased evaluation. To guard against this, it's important to consciously consider what is not present or what has not happened in addition to what is evident. This involves evaluating all relevant information, both positive and negative, before making a decision. Chapter 96. Cherry picking. Cherry picking describes the act of selectively choosing data or facts that support one's argument or belief, while ignoring those that contradict it. For example, a person might highlight only the positive reviews of a product they like, ignoring the negative feedback to persuade others of its quality. To guard against cherry picking, it's crucial to consider all available evidence, both supporting and contradicting. Seeking out and objectively evaluating information that challenges your views helps in forming a more balanced and accurate understanding. Chapter 97. Fallacy of the single cause. The fallacy of the single cause is the mistaken belief that complex events have a single cause, ignoring the possible interplay of multiple factors. For example, attributing a country's economic crisis solely to one policy decision overlooks other contributing factors like global market trends, historical context, and internal political dynamics. To guard against this fallacy, it's important to consider a range of possible causes and their interactions when analyzing complex situations. Adopting a multifaceted approach to problem-solving and analysis helps in avoiding oversimplification and reaching more comprehensive understandings. Chapter 98. Intention to treat error. Intention to treat error occurs when the outcomes of a plan are judged based on the intention behind it rather than its actual results, often leading to misguided conclusions. For example, a government policy aimed at reducing unemployment might be deemed successful based on its good intentions, even if it fails to actually lower unemployment rates. To guard against this error, focus on the actual outcomes and impacts of actions, rather than their intentions. Evaluating real-world results and data instead of just the theoretical or intended effects provides a more accurate assessment of effectiveness. Chapter 99. News illusion. News illusion describes the misconception that consuming news provides a clear and accurate understanding of the world, often leading to an overestimation of its usefulness and relevance. For example, a person might believe they are well informed about global affairs by watching daily news, but this often only offers a fragmented, sensationalized view. To guard against this illusion, seek deeper, more comprehensive sources of information, such as books or in-depth articles, which provide context and analysis beyond immediate news. Diversifying sources and critically assessing the quality and depth of information can lead to a more nuanced understanding of world events. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Sam Fury Show. If you found this episode useful, let me know with a like, follow, and share. Also, if you haven't already, be sure to visit samfury.com and join my free newsletter. As a subscriber, you'll receive no more than one email a week containing a roundup of my latest posts, as well as exclusive content which is only for my mailing list. It's completely free to join at samfury.com.